men, women, and children. I'm not on your side. Okay, I'm a guy that will dare to use the P word, and that P word is a pacifist. And the reason I'm a pacifist is because I absolutely hate violence. Okay, last resort. Okay, and I'm not ashamed to say that because that's what it means to me. In no way does it equate to cowardice. Okay, if you read a book by the decorated Marine Corps general, one Mr. Smedley Butler, War is a Racket is the title of the book, and you will find out these same things. Because I always said, you know what, I hated violence. Even since a child, I hated violence. I mean, when I was 7 years old, there was the images. Everybody had black and white back. Only the rich had colored TV in the early '60s. But these images of flatbed trucks just pile high with the bodies of teenage boys. Boys, you understand? Teenage, we'll call them men. If, some people say, "Oh, listen, boys, men, teenagers, trucks piled high with the bodies of these soldiers, these troops, these brave American men." Okay, and back then there was no women. I mean, I don't know how many women died in the Vietnam War. I know some did. Plenty of innocent, Vietnamese women certainly died. But so I've had a bad feeling about violence since childhood. Okay, I don't like it. God has got to be appalled by it. I mean, that's when I started to pray and believe in God. I mean, it was more than just my parents talking about these things, God, or going to church. I mean, my dad dropped out. He was a Catholic, and I was a little boy. Last time I think we went to the Catholic church, I had to be no older than 4 years old. Okay, so there wasn't a lot of that. But my dad did turn into a rebel of sorts. He was very much a dissenter of the American way at that point, very disillusioned after the assassination of JFK. Okay, he wrote a book back in the early '60s called Apple Pie. It was a satire of the United States government, and he said something in there. Whatever it was, it got the book censored because it sold millions of copies at first, but it was yanked off the shelves and censored. He did talk about, at that time we had the FBI director. He was talking about what J. Edgar Hoover or something, and his propensity for cross-dressing or something. So that might have been spilling the beans on a subject that was taboo back then, but it's common knowledge today, and we don't think anything of it. But back then it was a big deal. So whatever happened, to the book, it got yanked. But he was PO'd, okay, about the assassination of JFK. And you know what? I've never stopped being PO'd. The more I learn about it, the more PO'd I am. And the older I get, I'll tell you another thing, friends, is the more I'm convinced that I'm on the right track. When I tell you and everybody else, as a friend, as a brother that's just trying to be your friend, that wants the best for you, because I know that what's best for you is best for me. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Straight up, there's no way humanity can extricate ourselves from the maws of this beast system without God's help. Fundamentally, to understand the dynamics, what's going on here, what it's going to entail to confront this thing, and to really make any progress, for the righteous to make any progress on this front, we're going to need God's help. And you've got to understand how you are being murdered, how you're being taken. This generation and the future generation is being murdered. Okay, it is through financial means. That's it. They're stealing your wealth. They're killing people. Do you understand? Because of their willingness to kill people, that's the beast you're up against. Okay, that you don't comply and conform, capitulate to their whims. That's what they have in store for you. You know it. On a semi-conscious, subconscious, subliminal level, we all know that these are mean people at the very top. And they will do anything. They'll use every trick in the book, every tool, every weapon at their disposal to keep the people down. They don't want you empowered. We've all heard the term knowledge is power, right? The phrase knowledge is power. Well, that's right. And God is true knowledge. He is the source to help you to understand, to come out of Babylon, to come out of the muddied and bloodied waters of human civilization and understand the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Come, he says, swim in the clear, clean waters, and I'll show you everything. I'll reveal it all to you. Ask, and ye shall receive. You knock and the door will be open to you. Seek and you will find. Okay, these are what Jesus said to the people. It's not a religious thing. It's a knowledge thing to empower people. I want to empower you so you can empower other people. Go to the source. Ask on an individual basis. Just go in your closet. Like prayer is a very personal thing. That relationship cannot be duplicated. Nobody can replace that relationship. Okay? Nobody can know, love, and understand us like God. He's a jealous God. I mean, nobody can hold a candle to that love. I mean, you've got genuine, sincere friends, okay, that would die for you. Understand that. Okay, but nevertheless, they're not your owner. They're not your creator. They cannot love you and understand you like he can. Yet they're willing to die. That's a beautiful thing. That's a godly trait from that friend of yours that would die for you. And there's a lot of them out there that would die for the innocents. A lot of law enforcement are very righteous people. If crime plummeted tomorrow, most of these people would say, hey, I'll find another career. I like most cops and law enforcement. I think they're good, decent, they're like angels or something. You know, the protectors, the defenders, right? They're the opposite of a threat, right? So it's a beautiful thing. But we've got to really understand the scope of the madness that is the rule of the day upon the earth. And these evil people will use law enforcement. And law enforcement kind of knows. They know that they've got to watch out for draconian laws that they're called on to enforce because they don't want to. Who blames it? I know. I'm not going to do it. If I was in law enforcement, I'd say, well, this is called civil disobedience when I refuse to follow this law. I'm not going to talk about it because I'll lose my job. But I'm just not going to comply to the whims of the evildoers because I know this is an evil law. So I'd have to be a conscientious objector in that regard and not do it. But we've got to understand how we're being taken here, okay, and what it's going to take to extricate ourselves. It's all done by financial means. They're murdering us financially. They're stealing our wealth. So they don't lie, cheat, steal is nothing to these people. These politicians, they're at each other's throats. They're vying, and they say we're polarized and we're on opposite ends and we're never going to get along. And we just want the votes. These people are corrupt, up one side, down the other. And these are the leaders. These are the rulers. What we've got is trickle-down evil in the land. So they get all these minions to conform and comply. What we have is fascism now. If we've got 51% of the people voting, we call it a democracy, and they're voting to raise your cost of living, to raise your taxes, same thing, 2 peas in a pod. If it's the cost you must pay, you're compelled to pay in order to continue to exist, to live, the cost of living, to survive, then it's onerous. Okay, and that's what they're doing to us. They're the ones that make the need for this social welfare industrial complex. Do you understand? It's the evil people and their rules that selectively apply. They're privileged type. They're the ones in their ivory towers that are protected by everything that the unwashed masses of their minds aren't. The minions, okay, those that are less than them. That's how they think. These are sick, perverted people. Sociopaths that don't value their conscience. So values become very important. We've got to ask God for right values. We've got to ask God for the right belief system. That's it, the right opinions. You get controversial issues. Don't you want to be on the right side, on God's side, the good guy side? It's as simple as that. That when we get it, what we've done is we've chosen to literally see through God's eyes, see his point of view, her point of view, their point of view. Because the one God in the first chapter of the Bible is described. We know what the nature of God is. God is spirit. God is whatever God wants to be. And God wanted to be male and female. Yes, one almighty creator God is male and female. It's a beautiful thing. That's why we are so and men in particular are so discontent being single. We know, hey, there's something missing here, man. I need that rib that was taken. You see, as a metaphor, an allegory, you see, that's a big deal. Why did God do that? Because he said, go forth, be fruitful and multiply. So he made it irresistible. He made it necessary, a necessary part of man's contentment and happiness. He needed a female. So God ensured that his commandments are followed, that we would mate, and we would seek a wife and be beholden to her and be joined with her, and the two become one flesh as described in Scripture. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, I don't know how I would explain a lot of stuff to atheists and people that were on the fence about, they're agnostic. Well, should I believe? Should I not? So all I can tell people is, listen, don't blame God for anything bad. Nothing bad is God's fault. Let's be clear. This is why I feel like I have a relationship with God. I mean, he's shown me his amazing grace over and over and over when I don't feel like it. He helps me to understand this battle that is raging in my soul between my carnal nature and my spiritual nature. Okay, when I say, I don't know how to contend with this thing, God. And he says, well, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you understand. I'm going to show you my amazing grace. I'm going to pour it out to you. And he does over and over and over and over, even when I don't think I deserve it. But he does it. And I say, you know what? That just makes me love him all the more. And I just want to be a good guy. I just want to be on his side. And when I do that, I realize, hey, you know what? It's cut and dried. It's not hidden. God's will is out there for everybody. It's flapping in the wind. You want to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Ask in prayer on a personal, individual basis, knowing your own. Nobody can love you as much as God does, not even yourself. And remember, I mean, listen, all of us tend to love somebody else more than we love ourselves. Okay, that's just the way it is. We're our own worst enemy and all that. It's just the way it is that we find ways to humble ourselves. We have weaknesses, so we have ways to feel pitiable and pathetic. And so this is the flesh bringing us down. Our spirit wants to soar with the eagles, but our carnal mind, the carnal man wants this in the gutter, okay? That's it. Just wants to beat us up, and there's a division, there's a schism right within our own members, and it affects our entire civilization, as a society. Through the ages, this crap has been going on. This paradigm, this pattern, this dynamic has been the rule of the day since the dawn of time. So this is it, man. See, God, if he wanted just another instinctual creature, that's what he could have done with man. But we are created in his image and likeness with great capacity, unlimited, virtually capacity to imagine. So we're godlike in that sense. You understand our ability to co-create. And so we're unique. And so there's this thing called free will choice that comes into play. That's what makes us unique from all the creatures. And what it is we misuse that at the beginning. That's the way the story goes. But God had no choice. You can say, well, God, that was stupid. Why give us free will choice when he knew we were going to, or, the possibility at least existed that we would screw up and choose wrongly like we did, to choose to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and our eyes are open, and we knew the difference between being naked or not. This was the first question God asked, is how do you know? Okay, well, who told you were naked? You see, we were oblivious. We were, in that sense, innocent, just like all the other creatures. We were still made in the image and likeness of God, but we didn't have that knowledge to feel guilt and shame about our nakedness. And we did. And so death entered into the picture because God warned us that if we ate from this tree, then that day we would surely die on that day. But it was not an instant death, so we listened to this other entity, let's say, in the Garden of Eden called the serpent. Okay, there's these forces. There is definitely good and evil forces, good and bad forces in this world. And we listened to the wrong one. We were deceived. We were told a half-truth. Our ancestors were. And so we ate from this tree of knowledge of good and evil, and we got it. So death came later with all the diseases, right? Gravity, like in all likelihood, was changed, because some would argue, and reasonably so, that what do you mean you can't die? I mean, how could God make it so we can die? What if you fell off a cliff? Duh, you're going to die. So you see, in my own estimation, I figured out, well, yes, gravity would have to be less, not so we're floating off into space, but just so it wasn't lethal. Plus, you combine that with vastly superior atomic structure of the body, and you could see, well, yeah, that would make sense. Because this body, even this carnal body of death, mortal body, that we live in has self-healing properties, right? So it's really very fascinating subject. But yeah, so you've got to, anytime you see a problem with something, you say, well, it's not logical. Then figure out for yourself. Use your own God-given ability to think, to imagine a solution. So whether a problem is an organic problem or whether a problem is an artificial problem, God has given each one of us this extreme intelligence, this wherewithal to solve it in our minds. And then you share that with people and you realize, wow, God has given us all the ability to extricate ourselves from the maws of the evil men that are ruling over us in this satanic beast system. And what powers it up, the fuel, the ambrosia for the god of this world, Satan, and all the minions thereof that are going along and that value money more than conscience and human beings, is money.